Howdy, folks. It's not Jay, and it's Wednesday. You know what that means? It means it's another Chronicles of Not Jay. Tonight we got James Wapple on the line with us. Hello, James.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
So, for those of the uninitiated, James is an amazing painter, and I'm going to go ahead and embiggen his screen here so y'all can see it. And yeah, he paints exclusive. Well, I shouldn't say exclusively in oils, but probably 99.9% of the time you're in oils now, right? Very rarely do you use acrylics.
Yeah, only if it's like, well, all of a sudden the deadline changed. You put it in the mail tomorrow. Otherwise, it's oils all the time.
Yeah. So we got Tiger Shadow with us. Here we go, boys. Thank you for dropping in, Tiger. And John from Joy of Wargaming. Heyo, back at you. And we need to get you onto a show here pretty soon, also, sir. I know we had some plans and those fell through. I hope everything's going well with your family. And then Dave Hall's in the house with a chat about Wednesdays. And hello. Well, hello to you too. So let's see here. We got some Mongols here. What's going on?
So this is for, remember I was telling you about that Candish army I was working on for Lord of the Rings? And at the time, the only option were these really hideous metal ancient figures from GW, which A, are ancient and metal, and B, they're super expensive, and C, you really can't get them anymore because they're almost always out of stock. And I found, this is from Fireforged right here, and they're just historical Mongol cab. But the nice thing is they are the classic sort of plastic figures where it's all very multi-part. So there's banners and shields, bows, spears, you name it, they have all of it. And the heads are separate, the arms are separate, torsos. So it's kind of like the old way of building figures instead of the new GW way, which is, well, it all has to be assembled just one way. And that there's like a dozen of these guys in there, and I think I got it off eBay for $30.
Oh, that's so not too shabby.
12 mounted cavalry with all the fixins for just that much. And now that, well, Medbury Miniatures, they have, they're doing their own Candice stuff, but they have things like, as part of the chariots, well, look, the back banners. So now if I can actually put back banners on the plastic guys, and now they really just do look like the Candish riders, only better, because with these guys, I mean, you need anywhere between a dozen to 2 dozen of these things to have any kind of serious army.
Right.
And these things are about 20-something bucks a piece.
Holy crap.
Somewhere, yeah, but you can start including shipping and stuff. And then the pain and agony involved, because this is all solid metal. Well, not solid metal, I wish it was, but it is several pieces of metal you'd have to slug together otherwise. Instead, here's a nice piece of plastic again that I could do axes, bows, whatever it is that I needed to do.
Right.
Just so, and the horses actually look more like those kind of step type horses, because they're more historical.
Right, exactly.
You know, even these quivers that I could put on chariots. So there's plenty. Of course, now with the 3D printing, so many armies are just being made. Like, I don't think I had these since the last time we were on. So I think I was talking about the camel riders. Well, there's a guy who's doing all of Far Harad. He did the half trolls and he did camel riders. And this is a one-piece print. That's it.
Nice.
One-piece print. If you're doing the metal camel rider, now you're talking about $35 a piece, and just these 2 horns alone are separate pieces.
Right.
and it's all metal, and you've got to green stuff the heck out of it to make sure it's not falling apart and all the other kind of stuff. So
Yeah, and fill in the
it
cracks, and yeah,
it
it's
is just so glorious now being able. Oh, I just got Corsairs, right? So remember those pirate figures that I had gotten that I was showing you? I
yeah,
think those are from Frostgrave Archipelago. It's almost like I don't even need those now because now I have all these Corsair files.
nice,
And they're all
nice.
just one piece. They have arbalesters, they have axes, all the stuff that they would need to be just a complete faction. It's of course when the Frozen decides to be a Baku, right, and just basically
Right.
destroy itself, that's less helpful.
Unfortunate as it is, but of course, we also have Dante in the house. Hi, Dante. Welcome. Dante says hi.
Yeah,
Um, so before we dive into tonight's topic, because I did get a suggested topic, I'm going to talk about, well, we're going to go ahead and say it, my sponsor. Wiley Games, Jay Wiley over at Wiley Games, uh, gets me the hookup, makes sure that I've got stuff to show to get people excited about buying his games. And he just sent me. Now, last week we talked about the promos that they've got coming out for 2022, and I'll touch on those again. But I wanted to show some actual stuff that you can buy that goes toward the promo goodies. And the first thing I'm going to show you, it goes along with. And let me go ahead and I'm going to pop myself back up to being big here. There we go. Is the Fistful of Lead dungeon deck, and this came out with the fantasy rules. And what this does is it's a numbered deck. You know, you can use it if you wanted to use for activation. It doesn't have the special rules on them, but what it does have is an actual dungeon layout. So you can randomly draw cards. For instance, I've got a short passage dead end. All of the twos are short passage dead end. All the aces are quest rooms. Your eights are long passage left turn. Your nines are long passage T junction with a door. He even gives you quote unquote jokers, and it says this card has been left blank for players to make their own passage or room. So, I mean, how cool is that? And you could either draw it on here if you wanted to, or make it a wild card and say, well, this time I want it to be this type of room. That's how I would play it. You can do it however you want. But the kings are large rooms. The queens are small rooms with hazards in them. With a door, large or a large hazard room, one door. So are all the kings? Hold on. Or are the face cards? Oh yeah. So the face cards are similar but not the same. So King of Spades is a large room. King of Hearts is a large room with an additional door. King of Diamonds is a large room, 2-door. And the King of Clubs is a large room with 1 door. Then your Queen of Spades is a small hazard room with a door. Large hazard room is a heart with a door. Hey, Chuck, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for dropping in. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Large lair room with 2 doors. Small lair room. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So your face cards are your rooms. Your numbered cards are your hallways. So pretty cool. and it doesn't have to be used for fantasy. You could use this for any type of thing you want it to be. So let's say you're playing something akin to Space Hulk, 40K, Warhammer 40K. You could play something similar to Space Hulk using these cards. These aren't caverns. These aren't a dungeon. They're a Space Hulk. Walking through the corridors of your of this giant spaceship. They can be they could be a giant building in Star Wars where your Jedi are going to fight the droids, and they have to go through this room. So, Tiger said TJOW did a random adventure where the dungeon was revealed with each draw of the deck. It's exactly what I would do with this. It would be completely random. And the great thing is, the next time we play the game or the scenario, it's going to be a completely different game because it's going to be a completely different dungeon or Space Hulk or whatever. Chuck says, James, your painting is exquisite. I am in awe. That's much pretty much everybody's. That is everybody's view when they see him for the first time, or the second time, or the 100th time. Warmut says, hey Chris, hey Wapple, I'm watching from the cell at Dairy Queen with the fam. Of course you are. You had your tacos, now you got to go get your ice cream. That's how that works. So these cards are really cool. They are available on the website, the wiley-games.com website. If I remember correctly, they're $20. In my opinion, well worth the money. And right now, I can't remember how much longer they've got it going, but it's a buy one, get one half off. So instead of $40, it's only $30. So, and no code needed. It just is right now. So that is one of the things that you can buy to get you towards those promo items. The other thing that Mr. Wiley and the Baroness have sent me are some new tokens. So we know about the tokens that they've got already. And we're familiar with. We're familiar with the shock token. We're familiar with the wound token. We're familiar with the sneak token. Looks like tiny little shoes. We are familiar with the Overwatch or Targets token. But what we're used to seeing is a bullet for being out of ammo. But what they have now is crossed arrows. Because if you've got a bow or you've got a crossbow, you don't run out of ammo. You break a string. So this is telling me, hey, my bow is, quote, out of action. I've got to fix it. So there you go. So new tokens out. I did not do my due diligence prior to starting the show, so I don't know what the cost of these are. They're not that much, though. But it looks like you get 3, 6. Looks like you get 7 shock, 5. Yeah, 5 wounds, 3 sneaks, 2 of the Overwatches, and 3 of the arrows in a package. So, pretty cool. I like them. So, when you're spending money with Jay Wiley at wiley-games.com, the Baroness, Mrs. Wiley, the real boss, is going to take care of Warmutt. If you get a chance, drop on in again once you get back from DQ. Talk with the wife, tell her hello. But you can get stuff from. She's going to track how much you're spending, and this is all cumulative. So at $200 spent, they're going to send you a coaster with the Wiley logo on it. At, I believe it's $400 spent, they're going to send you a tape measure, Wiley Games tape measure. Again, it's a pretty handy tape measure. It does both imperial and metric. So for those that want the ability to measure either way, you've got that. I believe at $600 you get a stack of coasters. You get a stack of 6 coasters. At $800 you get one of these nifty difty cool snap together dice trays with the logo on it. So it travels flat, but when you get to your location and you start setting up for your game, you snap them into place. And there you have it. There you go. So that's at $800. At $1,000, you get a baseball cap with the Wiley logo on it. And then at $1,200, you get a t-shirt with the Wiley logo on it. And there's going to be more stuff coming, I'm sure. And not only can you get it by making purchases, but they're going to be running contests throughout the year next year, especially if at conventions they're wanting to see best table, they're wanting to see best crew, all kinds of different things. And all you got to do is be subscribed to their newsletter on the website, be subscribed to the YouTube channel for Wiley Games, and then send in at least 500 words explaining what we're seeing, whether it's your crew or it's a table or an after action report, etc., with at least 3 photos. And they're going to do that throughout the year. Also, if you plan to run one of their games at a convention, hit them up. They love sending stuff out to people that are going to have a convention to some freebies to give away. They've got stickers like this to give away. Maybe cards, maybe some more of these. So definitely go check out Wiley Games at Wiley-Games for all of your Fistful of Lead needs. I know I ramble and talk about Fistful of Lead and Wiley Games all the time, but Jay is really a good dude and has helped me quite a bit with this channel. As most of y'all are aware, I've got 100 subscribers now. So thanks to every one of y'all. Remember, go check out my video on talking about the contest. Excuse me. Watch the video. Make sure you are subscribed, and put what Star Wars miniature you would like to have painted and what size t-shirt that you want to have sent to you. And remember that T-shirt is going to be the where are we? Yeah, I'm gonna hide. Can I hide everybody? How do I hide everybody? No. Apparently, I can't hide everybody. I can do this though. That logo is what will be on the T-shirt. So, but yeah, definitely go over there. We are going to have the drawing the last Wednesday of the year on the 29th during the live show. And what I'm going to do is everybody that has listed their preferences, I'm going to go on a list and depending on how many are on the list, we'll determine which die type I use. And we're going to roll to see who wins because we're gamers and that's how we roll. Literally. So, but yeah, that's what we've got going forward. If y'all have any questions, plop them into the comments here or put a comment on the show afterwards. Be more than happy to work with you on that. So the topic that was given to me that I thought would be a good one to work with is what is the best introduction game to somebody that wants to get into gaming? And I'm going with, since most of us are miniatures gamers, there are some that are board gamers exclusively. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk specifically about miniatures gaming. Dave Hall points out that the 29th is also when the Book of Boba Fett comes out. So that's going to be a busy night for me because I'm going to come home from work, eat dinner, watch Book of Boba Fett, and then hop on the show. So just letting you know now, I may or may not have some things to say about the Book of Boba Fett. So here we go. So we're going to talk about what game or style of game or games that we would use to introduce somebody to gaming. And I know there's literally hundreds of opinions and everybody's got their own, and that's fine. And that's why we have these shows, is so we can hear other people's opinions. That's what I like. I like to hear what everybody else has to say. But the more I have thought about it recently, the more I think a board game, and you'll notice when I say board game, but a board game like Firefly Adventures that I just picked up, or Zombicide, where the game has miniatures in it. So it's not as scary for somebody that has never played a miniatures game before. They don't have to spend a lot of money to get into miniatures. And yes, Games Workshop and Gale Force 9 / Battlefront and Privateer Press and Warlord, they've got their starter kits or their starter boxes. The problem that I have with those, however, is that you spend $100, but you're barely scratching the surface with what that particular game is going to get you into. So, for instance, Battlefront with their I'm drawing a blank on the name of the game. It's right here on the tip of my tongue. Well, we'll go with Team Yankee. They've got a starter set for Team Yankee. It's got a small rule book, which is fine. A lot of people like the small rule books. I'm not opposed to the small rule book. It's handy to keep in my bag when I'm going to play the game. I don't have to carry a big hardback edition with me. And as long as it's got all of the rules, I'm okay with it. But then it's just got like 2 M1s and 3 T-72s and no infantry, no aircraft. It's just the very basics to get you to learn the basics. And that's like, and I may be off because I haven't priced them recently, but that's going to be 60, $70. So what I prefer is to have something like Zombicide. It's a complete game. Everything is in the box. Or Adventures of Firefly Adventures. Complete game. Everything is in the box. The nice thing is how they've got the miniatures colored. Is you've got your cowboy type characters are all in brown. Your thug characters are all in purple. And then with this particular game, you've got the crew of Firefly of Serenity. You've got their casual persona in gray and their heroic persona in green. So you don't even have to paint them to play the game, which is even more inviting to somebody who's never got into gaming before. They don't have to paint the figures if they don't want to. Now, granted, in a miniatures game like 40K or Team Yankee or Beyond the Gates of Antares, you don't have to paint those figures either. But when you are playing an exclusively miniatures-based game and all you have is the miniatures and whatever terrain that you can pull together, it lacks some panache, as it were. So the nice thing is the board games have everything you need to play the game. And once someone gets excited about playing the game, then you can say, hey, you can paint these if you wanted to. And I'm sounding like a homer here, but I've also got a game that you can play these miniatures so you can play the game differently if you want and show them Fistful of Lead. Or there's a multitude of other games out there with the Cowboys here. You could show them Knuckle Dusters, Gunfighter's Ball. Or you could go with you can go with Force on Force even if you wanted to. So it's a different way of going at getting people to get into miniature gaming. And if you don't want to go Zombicide, find out what, or the Firefly game, find out what type of game or what type of genre that your friend is interested in, and then see if there is a big company game out there that would make them interested. For instance, if they're a big Star Wars fan, obviously Star Wars Legion or X-Wing or Armada. But again, you know, definitely have them be aware of that's not the only way to play games. Chuck says Plastic Soldier Company, Britannia has lots of minis. All right, I'd have to look into that. Bunkhouse in the House says something I would highly encourage is not letting new players get in the mindset of having to use certain models for certain games. Don't tie certain models to specific games. Exactly my point. And that's the problem that you run into when you go and buy something like Beyond the Gates of Antares, or you buy Warhammer 40K starter box, is you run into the problem of, well, these miniatures will only work with this game because that's all I'm seeing everybody else. If you go with a box board game with miniatures, it's probably a little easier to get them to say, to get them moved over to a different way of playing with their miniatures. Also, unless they're really into it, I tend to stay away from competitive style games at the very beginning, because again, if you buy the 40K box set, you're not at competition level. You've got maybe a squad of the army when you need to have 5 or 6 squads in the army. And just like James was saying earlier with those horses, you can get those metal horses that are, what were you saying, $30-$40 a piece?
Each one at least $25, somewhere between 20 and 25 once you start getting the shipping.
Yeah. So I mean, and you got to have at least a minimum of a dozen of those things.
Oh geez, that wouldn't even be a whole army. That would be half an army.
That's just to get that one unit up and running. You're already at $240, and then you go to the other half of the army. Well, now you're at 500, and then it's got this really cool thing that you want to do, and well, that particular model is $75, and so competition gaming, if you don't know, and I'm not saying competition gaming is bad. If that's the way you want to play and have fun, by all means, do that. I did it for a while. It got me back into gaming. Once I realized I had other ways to play than by going and getting my business knocked in the dirt every single weekend, then I started having more fun with it. But yeah, definitely say, hey, yeah, those are cool Space Marines that you got. That's not the only way to run your. That's not the only way to run your models. So that's not the only game you can use. There's so many other games out there besides Fistful of Lead, especially like for Space Marine models. There's Fistful of Lead. You could use Force on Force. You can go and get Ground Zero Games Star Grunt too. It's free. And download the PDF and play that. Just let them know that there are so many different games out there to play that you don't have to play just 40K. Now, if you want to go and play 40K, hey, have fun with it. That's not going to be me. And that's okay. What about you, James? How would you introduce somebody into gaming?
It would, like you talked about genre, that's an important thing. the nice thing about the Zombicide, it's not really my favorite game, but it's cooperative. So you could actually have 3,
Right.
4, 5 people. You could play it all at once, and everybody wins, right? Because I've done the Blood
Exactly.
Bowl thing. I've seen people try and introduce Blood Bowl or a new guy potentially to a Blood Bowl league. The guy can't turn off his competitive thing. Next thing you know, it's 5-0. We never see the guy again because he
Exactly.
just spent 2 hours destroying a guy who's never played the game before.
Right.
Whereas Zombicide, you got to now. Of course, somebody can get a little bit over exuberant as the boss man and kind of take over. That
Right.
is one problem that can happen there, but still, it is a game where you're trying as a group to survive this thing, and there's
Right.
a just that element to cooperativeness. Maybe people don't get quite so left behind like they could in other
Right.
games. Now, if you're looking for, say, something that's more historical, I've always liked Memoir 44 because
Yes.
it's amazing just how close you can get to even something like, say, a squad leader with it, especially when you play the much bigger maps. You can scale it
Right.
up, you can scale it down. It does not take long to play. You can play a whole campaign in 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
Like 4 games all designed to chain together. And if you want to take it further, like we did, we made terrain for it. We found 1/72nd scale miniatures. We we weren't using tokens anymore. I mean, we had
Yeah.
flags. We had all kinds of fancy stuff for that. It looked like a miniatures game by the time we were done with it.
Yeah. Command and Colors is my brother's absolute favorite game. It's bar none his favorite game. To the fact that in my basement right now, there's no less than 5 different versions of Command and Colors that he owns. And I'm not talking about the expansions of the Ancients game, which he's got all of those. But he's got Ancients. He's got Red Alert, which is the spaceship version of the game. He's got Tricorn, which is the bicentennial, or not bicentennial, but the American Revolution, American War of Independence version. He's got the Napoleonics version. Um, he's just a multitude of versions, and it's what he says that he likes best about it is it gives you the feel. Yeah, I wish that was me. Todd's in the house. Wardrobe plays WW2. Says, "Man, not Jay, you're a painting fool tonight." He says, "Oh wait, that's James' hands I see there." Yeah, yeah. I'm not brave enough to use oils. B, even if I was, it would take me a couple of years to even come close to what Mr. Wapple does. Uh, he does do amazing work. And why aren't you on here, Todd? You better be eating chili at school or something. But as I was saying with Command and Colors and all the different variants thereof, it gives him the most miniature like feel of a game using blocks. He's even gone to the part to he's wanting to come up with his own rules, and he knows that there's battle lore out there for fantasy, but he just doesn't like how some of the things are done there. So he's coming up with his own rules using 28 millimeter fantasy models on a big 13-foot by 5-foot hexagon map that he's made out of felt. So yeah, that Memoir 44, which is a Command and Colors based game. Of course, Red Alert, if you're into starships. Ancients with Command and Colors Ancients. They've even got medieval rules now. Napoleonics. If there is a genre, even Japan during the Shogun era. They've got rules for that as well. So, I mean, there's just so many ways you can play that game. Some of them have miniatures, some of them are just blocks, but hey, it gets somebody interested in gaming, gets them, and that's the other thing is I'm I I really want to match the genre or the historical period that is going to make the potential new player most excited. And that's what I love about going to conventions that aren't just sci-fi conventions or aren't just historical conventions. Because if someone is really, really into World War II and they have a lot of knowledge about World War II and they go to a convention that is strictly sci-fi and fantasy, I'm not going to say they're going to be bored, but their imagination isn't going to be captured. Um, just like if you are a historical or if you're a sci-fi guy and you go to a historicon, you may or may not, you know, get interested in watch, in playing any of those games or seeing any of those games because they're historical. And I'll be honest, early on in my gaming career, two things turned me away from historical gaming for the longest time. One specifically for Napoleonics, and a lot of y'all have heard this story, is there was a painting contest, and you had to bring your whatever it was you were painting to and put into the contest up to a specific table and have it laid out, and people would walk by and look at your miniatures. Well, I was about 18, 19 years old. My brother and I were just now getting into the gaming scene. A year or two before, he got the 40K book, the Rogue Trader book, and the box of 3 rhinos, and a fistful of metal pirates, and the RB-01 uh, Space Marines, etc. So we went to this convention that was put on by the HMGS, Heartland of America, miniatures, historical wargaming, whatever. Anyway, it was the historical wargaming group that was putting the convention on, and there was this army, French army. I don't remember what it was during the Napoleonic period. I don't know what year it was supposed to be. I don't know if it was peninsular or it was, you know, main Europe or whatever. But to me, they were beautifully painted, absolutely gorgeous. And there was this old guy standing next to me, your standard grognard, big old white beard and uh, gut for days. And I looked over at him and said, "Aren't those miniatures just absolutely amazing?" And he looked at me kind of with a sneer and scoffed and said, "The turnbacks are the wrong color for that particular regiment." Oh, really? Yeah, that's all wrong. It's supposed to be a scarlet red, and that's obviously candy apple red or some nonsense like that. And I said, "Well, what do you think of what do you think of these Space Marines over here?" "Oh, I would never touch anything like that. That's just blah." He didn't say it exactly like that, but again, he scoffed. It's like, "Oh, so I'd never see you at a table with those miniatures." "No, never." And that right there pushed me away from Napoleonics. Then at another convention, I was playing a game, an Alamo game, and I went up to one of the guys after the game was over. The Texans lost, of course, uh, and I went up to the guy, one of the guys that was running the show, and he said, "Well, what you think of that Alamo game?" So I thought it was amazing. I mean, it worked out to be, be historically accurate. It was pretty cool. We we weren't able to change the outcome. So, well, what did you expect? What do you mean? What do I expect? Well, it's always going to be like, you're always going to be like that with historical games. It's always going to end up being that way. And it's like, I I don't like that either. I don't like the fact that a historical war game is supposed to always end up with the same outcome as it did in reality. I would think I want to see if I can change history by making different decisions. Um, so that really pushed me away from historical gaming for a while, also. So, but yeah, so definitely find out what your player is interested in, and you know, do your best to show them, what is available for that particular uh, area. Got McMurray uh, piping in from work. Wish you were here, buddy. Wardrobe paints Napoleonics. Yes. Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. So, um, okay. Now this is not the one that you just started, right?
This is the one just started. What, about 10 minutes ago ish, something like that?
Good God.
That's the wonder of oils. You get so much free blending, right? There was no base coat here. There was no layering, no glazes. I slapped those darker colors on, right? We wiped most
Yeah.
of it away with a sponge, but there was still some wet color on there. So all I had to do, I just basically took Terra Rosa, which is really just it's the same color I use for rust. It's the same
Yeah.
color I use for skin tone. And all I had to do was just start to brush that on there, and then take another brush, just start blending it together. And I just call it free blending because I
Yeah.
don't have to just bust my chops struggling with that. Here's another example right here. The pre-glaze was central to getting this done because this was a video where I had less than 2 hours to paint this entire thing. This was just
Good
primer,
Lord.
and in 2 hours, this whole thing had to be painted in that video. But you see how you got the purples there, the greens, more purples and greens. I didn't have to paint that in. I did the same thing with that pre-glaze, right? I brushed in some Egyptian violet there, some perlene black over there, a little indigo over here, wiped away most of it with the sponges. All I had to do was take one of these filbert brushes right here and basically almost just dry brush over the top of it, and all of a sudden it was like one of those magic things where somebody sprays the surface and it turns into a painting, but all they're doing is just literally spraying a fire hose at it. That's a little bit
Right.
what this was like, because this lighter color, all I had to do was put the same light color over everything, because the purple was here, the green was over here, the turquoise was over here, indigo over there. It just brought out those colors more and made it more visible. Because when you saw this guy at the start, he just looked like one big old chunk of black. But then you wipe some
Right.
of the stuff away, it starts to get a little bit of a tint. But then when you go with these lighter colors over the top, bam, that's where the magic happens. That's how you can get through this stuff. I mean, this is what I got to do for a living, so it makes sense that I got to be able to bust through these really fast. But people who don't
Right.
do this for a living, who only maybe get an hour or two, if they're lucky, to paint a day or maybe a week, that's why all my videos have to be an hour or two long, because that might be the average person's longest painting session. So they got to be able to hump it too. I mean, I got to do it for a living. The folks that don't do it for a living, they got to be able to bust through it really fast themselves. And even something
Uh,
like here's that same base used on a different figure. Well, over here, the pre-glaze, well, a lot of indigo over there. Guess what? Over here, I was using a reddish brown. So you can see, because there's this object source lighting here. Well, I knew this was, I think there's even some Prussian blue. Blame it on the Prussians, of course. The most
right.
militaristic paint color that there is on the palette. Next to Indian yellow. Seriously, those are command and control colors. They just overpower everything. But the Prussian blue, the indigo right here, all I had to do was just brush lighter colors onto this darn thing, because this was done on a live Twitch session, and I think the whole thing was 4.5 hours max.
Wow.
And you have to basically subtract an hour for things like me interacting with the chat and the puppet shows and all the other crazy stuff that we do on the chat or in the streams there.
Sure. Oh yeah.
But I was able to get this nifty color contrast. And actually, here, let me do my film noir here, because this will really show you an interesting idea. Now all of a sudden, look, you haven't lost any of the value there. But remember how this was a warmer gray? That was
It
cooler. Why?
does.
Because of the object source lighting. Well, you still got all the shading there, but there's no purple. There's no gold. When we bring this back, you're going to see cooler purples over here, warmer purples over here. Let's get this color intensity back. There we go. So all I had to do here was just start mixing some light magenta into what was Egyptian violet. If I said, you know what, I want that to be a cooler color, all I had to do over here was take a light turquoise and just start brushing it on the exact same way we were doing on Mr. Horsey right here.
Wow.
And with the skin tone, bright turquoise mixing with the skin color. This was the same thing. I just slapped one color on there, slapped another color, mixed them together, poof, all done. Yeah, actually, I just filmed, this is the latest tutorial that I just filmed right here. I think I had 100 minutes to do this. That includes the marble. That includes all the freehand on the shoulder pads and everything else. And there was no black used on this miniature at all. Nowhere. I took the same indigo and Van Dyke brown that I've been using on this sucker right here, made a black out of it. You know, I was telling you about taking the lighter magentas, lighter turquoise. There's some parts of this I was actually using a light green to tint it. Like, he's standing on white marble. How in the world is there no reflected light there? When people are struggling with the metallic stuff or the non-metallic or whatever, I keep telling them reflections, like here on this bolt pistol thing, which I find hilarious that all this stuff is chained to them. All I kept thinking is when you're a kid and you keep losing a glove, so your parents get really frustrated with you and they basically chain those gloves to your hand and all the other kids make fun of you. So I just kept imagining all the other Space Marines making fun of this dude because they had to chain his bolter to him because he kept losing it.
Tiger of Shadows says, I think we've all met people like that, referring back to the guy that I was talking about just being a jerk about, the painting of, it's not right. So then McMurray says, hey, look, it's the Magic Man himself, Wapple.
Hello.
He says also, just use the McMurray method. No time to paint through the week. Go absolutely ham on the nights off. Yeah, he does do a crazy amount of painting. I think one night we did early on after I went live. We sat down and in 2.5 hours he painted, I think, something like 7 or 8 Ewoks from prime to good enough. So he's pretty prolific, pretty good himself. So yeah, that is looking amazing, sir, as always. So yeah, once you figure out what interests someone, then you can start pointing them into the direction of a game. So I had a couple friends that I had met while playing tournament, 140K tournaments. And we were all pretty much done with wanting to continue with that. And one of them said, you know what I really wish we had was a game that we could play that was historical, that was similar to this. And I said, oh, do I have the thing for you? And I showed them. At the time, this was 15 years ago. So I was not aware of Fistful of Lead at that point at all. But I said, I got the game for you. And that game ended up being Battlefronts, Fire, their World War II game. Why am I
Flames
not?
of War.
That's it. Good God, my brain is just mush. Yeah, I showed them Flames of War, and what was great was everybody immediately picked a different nation. My buddy Russell immediately went to the Germans. My buddy Clay went to the Russians. I picked I picked the Americans, and my buddy David, he wasn't as big of a, into it as much, but he said, I like the British. Those British tanks are really cool looking. So you know, it was a way for me to get them. And at the time, we did there weren't any Flames of War tournaments in the area. There was just people at the historical war game store playing the game. We soon, once we had our armies, we soon shifted from playing Flames of War to Chain of Command by Two Fat Lardies. Again, showing how you don't have to use these figures with those models or for that game. There's a multitude of different games you can play with it. And then I found out about Force on Force, and you know all kinds of avenues opened up for us. So, um,
Did you want to
warm up. Go ahead.
Did you want to take a guess at the two armies that I have been making for Flames of War? Which ones were they?
Probably one was German, and the other one is probably Soviet.
French and Hungarians.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, the first one, the one that I actually had completed, was the French. I had even made the 75 millimeter anti-aircraft mobile guns that kind of look like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with a big old gun on the back of it.
Yeah.
Which I wish they had made those for bolt action, but I don't think they still ever have to this day. But I
Right.
had artillery. I even scratch sculpted, I think it was 12 Lorraines, 2 Laffleys, and a couple of the anti-tank versions of the Laffley for a game. Just
And
like
a
2 days
partridge in a
before
pear
the
tree.
game, I just scratch sculpted all those because I wanted them. And
Yeah.
they were very surprised when they saw those.
I can imagine. But yeah, it's when you want to introduce somebody to a game, whether it is they've never been a miniature gamer before, or they are or they've been a miniature gamer but now they're wanting to cross genres or time periods, you know, find out what interests them. See if there is a convention that's going to be in your area, and find out what that convention is going to focus on. Uh, Luckily for me, the conventions that I have been a part of over the last 25 or so years have been very broad spectrum gaming, um, going all the way back to uh, the mid 1990s when I was helping with a convention in Kansas City called Skirmishes. It it had literally everything. It had historical gaming, it had fantasy gaming, it had sci-fi gaming, it had role play gaming, it had board gaming. You name it, it was there. Um, then going into that, unfortunately, that one didn't last because the couple that were the primary runners of the convention got divorced. and things didn't end as well as they probably could have, unfortunately. Um, so that kind of fell apart. But then uh, shortly shortly after that, in the early 2000s, my high school started running a convention called Recruits. Again, very much a broad spectrum gaming. I mean, again, literally every type of gaming available. There was 40K games, there was bolt action games, there was homebrew games all over the place. Um, Force on Force, uh, the guys from Ambush Alley Games came up several times. That's where I met Jay Wiley with Fistful of Lead. Was at Recruits, and that went, oh man, 14, 15 years. COVID and construction at the high school has effectively killed that convention. Um, However, I can't go into many details, but there is a new convention that is going to be coming to Kansas City this coming March. So, last weekend of March is going to be fun fun gaming in the Kansas City metro area. Don't want to go into too many details because we're not 100% everything in line just yet. It is going to happen though, so just be aware. Um, and plane tickets to Kansas City are cheap. I'm just saying. Love to see some of you guys out there. But again, it's, find a convention that's gonna cater to the what your friends are looking for. And if there's not a game that is gonna cater to them, and you have the wherewithal to do it, why don't you go to the convention organizer and say, "Hey, I'd like to run this game. I think people would enjoy it." That's what I do. I personally don't go to conventions to play in games. I go to conventions to run games, to get people to play whatever it is that I'm really rabid about. Uh, Obviously, Fistful of Lead right now. Before that was, and still, uh, I like um, Force on Force. So I've run many Fistful of Lead games. I've run many Force on Force games. Yeah, it is expensive from Australia. The kicker is getting from Australia to the States. Once you're in the States, it's you can get round trip tickets into Kansas City for sometimes less than 200 if you catch the right if you catch it early enough. But that's neither here nor there. Um, Actually, I would love to visit Australia sometime, but yes, it is expensive. Um, and I'm not going to have the cop out of the flight's too long like Jay Wiley has. I know it's a long ass flight, but you know what? That's okay. So, but yeah, it's get involved with a convention and be a part of it. Run games for it if you can. The one thing that I would definitely focus on if you were to run a game, make sure your miniatures look good. I'm not, by no means am I saying that your miniatures have to look like they just got delivered from James Wapple. That'd be nice. That really would draw people to the table, but by no means are my miniatures to that level. I mean, we've seen some of my stuff. We've seen my Darth Vader here. It's serviceable. You know, we've seen You've seen my Luke Skywalker. He's serviceable. He gets the trick done. But don't come at him, with miniatures looking half done, or miniatures not done at all. You know, you can do that. Play with your miniatures unpainted at home, because to get to know how the game plays, to get to know how how your scenario works, etc. But when you go to the table, make sure your miniatures are decently painted. Do the best you can. I mean, I've put out some I put out some not so great miniatures. I mean, these are some of the first guys I've done that I did. Um, my 15 millimeter, uh, my 15 millimeter Flames of War guys. I mean, he's not great, but at 3 feet, which is what you want, it is really as long as they're looking good at 3 feet on the table, doesn't matter. The other thing is make sure you've got good terrain. I cannot tell you how important and how good your miniatures will look when you've got good terrain. Now, again, it doesn't have to be James Wapple level terrain boards, because again, I've seen his stuff on his Twitch show, and it is just ridiculous what he does. But make it look good, because if you can make it look good, that will get people interested to come to your table and say, "Hey, what's this?" And then you can tell them, "Oh, well, we're playing Fistful of Lead Galactic Heroes Star Wars Battle of Endor. I've got the trees, I've got the rocks, I've got the bunker, I've got stormtroopers, I've got rebel commandos," and people are interested because it looks good. That's I've seen people come to conventions and they've got two-dimensional, and you know what? If that's all you can do, make it look as good as you possibly can. That's all I'm saying. Do the best you possibly can, but you're going to have to be even more energetic and more excited about what you're presenting when the table, isn't, great. And I don't want to sound like a gaming snob, because I'm not. I'm not going to tell you can't play with unpainted miniatures. I'm just saying, if you're wanting to get people excited about the game you're playing, make sure it looks exceptional. So once you've done that, then you can get them excited about the game, because they're excited about the stuff. Paul Bexa says he's waiting from the hospital, waiting for a scan. Is this a new issue, Paul, or is this something from previous issues? I'm hoping it's previous issues, because you've had a hell of a year this year, sir, and you're due for not having to deal with it, to be honest. So Chuck says, "Hope all goes well, Paul." Yes, definitely. I'm greatly appreciative of the community that we all have put together here. Again, I can't thank y'all enough. And I'm glad James. I messaged him this morning and said, "Hey, you want to come on the show?" And he said, "Yeah, I think we can make that happen." I'm glad he's been with us a couple of times before. I'm glad that he wants to continue to to come and be a part of the shenanigans, as it were. So,
Oh yeah,
Bunkhouse says, go ahead.
I felt bad about missing those weeks. It just with all that suddenness with Kathy's dad and all that stuff playing out, that created some major disruptions there.
Oh, I understand. Don't worry about it. It happens to all of us, unfortunately. Bunkhouse says the painted minis and terrain really help. You're not being a snob. You're basically trying to sell the game to someone. Exactly, exactly. Like I said, once you get into a game, that is when, for me, that's when the fun happens because I I'm gonna be honest. I don't like reading rules. That's why I probably don't play a lot of games. I'm going to have to uh, I'm gonna have to dig into this here. Uh, my Monty Lamar Anvil of Fate uh, box game because I really want to play it, and I think it could provide some good content for the channel. But I hate reading rules. Um, I but and I'm not a fan of painting. I don't like to paint. It's not, to me, painting is not leisurely. Some people like to paint because it helps them relax. It helps them get through the day, as it were, kind of, use it as a stress relief. That's I paint because I have to, because I refuse to pay somebody else to paint my stuff. Again, if you want to do that, if you've got the money, you got the wherewithal to send your, miniatures off to whoever you're sending your miniatures off and give them hard earned money to make your miniatures look great, do it. I'm not saying you're a bad person. My best friend does that uh, with his miniatures, and he enjoys playing with them once he's got them back painted. Great. I am happy for him. I'm not that guy. Um, but I paint because I have to. Uh, Tiger says, I was hoping McMurray was going to be on. I like his apologies for his own vulgarity. Hopefully soon. I'm really hoping he'll be here on the 29th for our big end of year show. I'd really like for him to be here. I'm hoping. And then, of course, Hex to Hex, Hex Encounter, Hex Encounter. Yeah, and that's another way, and that may be an episode that we have when I get Jeff on here with us, talk about what games to use to get people into, board gaming. I'm going to be honest, a little bit of sneak preview. Command and Colors. That's my game to get you in to board gaming. To be perfectly honest, so it's a two-way street with Command and Colors there. Chuck wanted to know if so Hexy given up on painting. He says no, not at all, Chuck. So yeah, we actually got our avowed board game only, historical only gamer to start painting miniatures. Granted, they're 15 millimeter Germans for Flames of War, but he's painting. So now, what is, you are freehanding some sort of icon there? What is that we're?
So for all of my Easterling, Candish, Harad, Far Harad armies, I'm trying to incorporate in some of them the Eye of Sauron.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah,
I looked
yeah.
up a bunch of traditional Mongolian designs, and that's what these three. Because what I want to have it, I call it the We Three Kings army.
Yeah.
Because with the Cand, you have no central. There is no King Aragorn or King Theoden or King blah blah blah. There's no Golden
Right.
King. there's just a bunch of separate factions.
Right.
And this is to show each of those kings will be leading a different war band. And that's, I wanted to have 3 different color schemes, but also 3 different sets of icons, since they all have these stupid back banners. It's like a bunch of Ashigaro cavalry and chariots running around.
Right.
And I thought it's also logos and symbols. It's something that I really love doing. Where's my Easterling? So this is my Easterlings with the serpents
Yeah.
and a lot of the scroll work there. And then, of course, the Eye of Sauron. Trying to represent this as the Easterlings. They're sort of your Waffen-SS of Middle-earth. They're true believers. They're the most
Right.
elite. They have the heaviest armor, the best weapons. So I was trying to indicate that with my Easterlings there. I think I showed you the beefy chiefy that I sculpted, right? That troll chieftain.
Yeah.
So him too. Now, obviously, it's to contrast with all the Rohan stuff, because I'm trying to get these designs to look as different as possible from, because these 2 armies, I really want to see an all-cavalry Kandish army fighting an all-cavalry Rohan army. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Which is weird, though, because in the current meta with Lord of the Rings, nobody uses cav. They'll basically have a hero on a horse because they want to give him the extra attack. Otherwise, you'll never see cavalry. You'll barely even see Rohan cavalry. And well, with the new War in the North book that they're doing, I'm a person, I would just play all cavalry armies. Doesn't matter what the faction is. If it's dwarves, it'll be goats. If it's Harad, it's going to be, these guys here, right? And if it's Far Harad, it's going to be these guys right here. So it will love cavalry because you actually move around. Every Lord of the Rings, you look at battle reports now, you will see the same thing. There is a line of this and a line of that. They're set up 3 inches across from each other, and it's who rolls the most 6s or who wins the most heroic action roll-offs wins. There's just no point in watching it. And when I was talking, because they're doing a new thing, a new book, and the Easterlings are certainly going to be a big part of it because it's War in the North, right? The Easterlings were attacking Erebor. And I talked about having my old, because back in 2006, I've been playing Easterlings since the beginning. And I talked about having an all-black dragon army. They said, oh, that's no good. You should just have regular pikemen. And I knew they were going to say that. I said, yeah, these aren't pikemen. These are cataphracts. These are cavalry right here. So when you have, and of course I have a war drum. So these guys, everybody else in the game is moving 6 inches. These guys are moving 10 plus 5 for the war drum. So I'm moving 15. You're moving 6. You can't move your line fast enough to react to this.
Right.
And if I also have, say, Kamul the Easterling on a Fell Beast, now I'm just leaping back and forth over your lines, or hitting you from both flanks because I'm moving either 12 inches and flying, or 15 inches. Hell, when we were playing, even when we were playing things like bolt action, it was games of movement. It was mounted troops, right? They were in Hannam eggs. They were in M3, whatever they were going to be in. They were going to be mobile.
Yeah.
They weren't just going to be ground pounders, because you can do that once in a while and that's okay. But if that's every single game, it's the same thing over and over again. And I knew they were going to get into it right away. It's like, oh, no, don't. For years, I've heard nothing about how Easterling armies stink, and and nobody ever takes the Black Dragon upgrade because they never do it on cavalry.
Right.
Which is bizarre, because even just in a podcast last night, all I was hearing is how Easterlings don't have enough killing power. When they're on a horse, and that's my favorite thing about Lord of the Rings, horses and chariots have actual impact, whereas in games like Warhammer, they're basically just a guy and a critter. They don't really mean anything.
Right.
Here, when this guy charges infantry, not only is he going to knock him down, he's going to double the chance he has of killing him, because he's on the ground and this guy's got, well, a 17-hand horse that's about to step on him. That's going to hurt a little bit. But these guys, they can't kind of put the 2 and 2 together. Well, they want numbers. They want 40 guys. Now, all right, you can have your 40 guys. I'll take my 23, killing 2 or 3 of yours at least every turn, if not 4 or 5.
Right.
You can't kill these guys when you're laying on the ground. It kind of stands to reason you're not going to do too much hurting when you're the one on the ground. But they can't even conceive of that. Like, wait a minute, I'm sure. Well, it happens with bolt action. There's the Soviet army with the 50 order dice at 200 points.
Yeah.
It's like, how did you get those 50 order dice? Well, I got 4 Katyusha rocket launchers. I have 6 snipers. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, but it's all meta. I just hope that meta doesn't ruin the momentum, because it doesn't matter what the game is. It could be a fantasy game. It could be a historical game. The meta is the enemy of just every game system.
Yeah. It's that also is part of the reason why I've shied away from the tournament style play. Is there are people out there that are so competitive, that that's all they do is they follow they follow the this is the strongest army because so and so said so. You know.
What's really fun is to run into those guys, because they all are it's a bunch of lemmings jumping over a cliff. When you're the one guy that stops at the edge and just watches them jump over, they're
Mhm.
looking back going, wait a minute, we didn't have to do this. And when they are so used to facing infantry only armies, and I've actually watched this happen on the rare battle report where somebody shows up with an army that is not the meta. They literally have no idea what to do. They have
Right.
no clue what to do next, because they're expecting the usual line of infantry, and we're just going to walk up to each other slowly, and that's it. All of a sudden, someone has cavalry or something that is very fast moving around, that hits really hard. They don't know how to deal with it, because they are so unused to seeing it. And actually, it can be a nice big advantage.
Yeah, a friend of mine who was very big into back when I was living in Austin, and he was gaming. Um, you could give him. It didn't matter what army you gave him. He would be able to uh, win. 7 out of 8 times, 7 out of 8 games, he was going to win. There's always that one game where your dice just will not be in your favor no matter what you do. But uh, he was able to, because he knew not only what his primary army could do, but what everybody else's armies could do. He knew how to force the other player to react to what he was doing, and it didn't matter whether he was, and this was all 40k, whether he was playing a Tau army or an Orc army or a Space Marine army or what have you. He knew he knew and studied the meta, and the thing about him was he wasn't competitive. Like he wasn't playing the game to just be a jerk about playing the game, because there are people out there, they just want to win no matter what. So they're going to put together, a Blood Angel army that's uh, got nothing but assault cannons, and it's you know this is how I'm going to win, is I'm just going to assault cannon you to death. Uh, but he would learn. That's what he loved to do, is learn the ins and outs of all the different armies and how they interacted with each other. How do the Tau use their drones in a way to force the Space Marines to do something that the Space Marine player is not used to dealing with? Or how do you get orcs to do, how do you make the orcs do a certain thing to make the Tau, be off feel off and ultimately not be able to play the game that they want to play. And as he put it, is like, I know how to make the other player dance to my song, to my music. And if I can make the other player dance to my music, then I'm going to win the game 99 times out of 100. And I thought that was pretty cool because it was all about the game design. He was very interested in how the game was designed and how all the different factions interacted with each other. Plus, he was a nice guy, and he would, even in tournament games, like, you really want to do that? Because if you do that, this is what's going to happen. We can either continue to play and have some fun with this, or you can do what you're about to do, and the game will be over in 15 minutes.
Uh-huh. That's what I've had to do with the one person that I still very rarely see to play something. I'm trying to show him this game, and it's just a discussion. I'll say, look, I am going to do this. These will be your options after I do this. Then we'll really discuss his options on his turn.
Yeah.
Say, okay, how can you defeat what was just done here? And that's really good, because when you dissect what you've done and basically are playing both sides of the game, you see that thing that looked so rock solid wasn't so rock solid.
Right. Oh, and he was also damn near impossible to beat in chess because he just had that ability to look at the board and like Fisher or not Kaspersky, Spassky, I think his name was, the Russian chess guy from the 80s. Be able to look at at the chessboard and say, okay, he's going to do this, so I'm going to do this, and then that happens. He knows 10, 15 moves ahead before you even know what's going to be doing. So, and that's the other thing. Even if you're going to play in a tournament style game and you are good at tournament play, don't be the jerk that just wants to dog stomp everybody. There are some people that are doing their best and they just can't. They end up not being good at it. I'm one of those. Because they don't know 100% of the rules 100% of the time. Yes, go ahead and win the game, but don't be a jerk about it. We're here to have fun, and I'm not saying that you can't have fun the way you want to have fun, but be mindful of how other people are having fun also, because it is no fun just setting up all your models and then turn and a half later being just done, and all you were able to do the entire time was roll defense dice. That's all I'm saying. Just be mindful of, yes, have fun the way you want to have fun, but be mindful of how others are having fun with you, because it's a two-way street. People say, oh, but it's a 50-50 venture. No, it's 100%, 100%. It's I need to be 100% in the moment with what I'm doing, and 100% in the moment with what my opponent is doing, and whether my opponent is having any fun or not. Bunkhouse says that's something I'm trying to teach my kids. If they aren't having fun playing with you, then you are doing it wrong. That's the only time that's the only time I will say that you are having fun wrong, is when you're having fun but nobody else is. Exactly. Yeah, you play with the other player, not against them, even in a competition. You know, it's the competition isn't who rolls the other team off the board as fast as possible. You know, and I know people that are like that, and there are far too many of those type of people in the Austin uh, in the Austin tournament scene to cause me to say I'm not going to play in the tournaments anymore. I used to go to play in 40K tournaments because it guaranteed me 3 games. The first game, I would always get drawn against one of the best players in the area, and I would get obliterated. It would be even to the it would almost be to the point where I didn't even want to put my models out on the table because I knew that within 30 minutes I was going to be putting them back, and it was a 3-hour session. The second, I would always draw the guy who turned out to be one of my best friends. And the third game, the tournament coordinator would always come up to us and say, hey, we don't normally like to have people play each other again in the same tournament, but is it okay if we pair you off because y'all both got so obliterated in the first round, and then y'all are so close in the second round that points wise, y'all are still the two bottom players. Okay, if we just pair you off again, yeah, that's not a problem. And we, after a couple of months, we realized we could probably do this on our own at home and not have to worry about that first game at all. Oh. Warmut says, I would introduce him to Zombicide. And actually, we talked about that, Warmut. We talked about Zombicide. It has dice to roll. There are skills traits, makes you think, and co-op, which is helpful to teach newbies some of the mechanics of miniature wargaming. That's exactly why we had discussed Zombicide. So I knew that's what you were going to come with, Brian. So I brought it up for you, and James agrees that's exactly why you want to introduce him with Zombicide. And again, I got to figure out how to play this one, but it is cooperative as well. So it's actually for 1 to 5 players, so you can play solo, or you can get you and your friends to play the crew of Serenity. There are, like I said, not like Zombicide. Zombicide has what, about 850,000 different expansions at this point. I think. I could be wrong. This has currently got 2 expansions. It's got Simon and River, and it's got Anara and Shepherd Book. Those are the 2 expansions, which I will probably be getting in the new year, because you got to have them all, right? So, well, Mr. Wapple, you have painted to the point where I would say, yep, I'm done. He's good. You've painted past that. Do any of these miniatures, they're supposed to be Mongols, right?
Well, the Candish guys, you never really know in Tolkien's world, were they supposed to be steppe? Were they supposed to be Chinese? Because GW has given them such a Chinese look to them instead of a Mongol look.
Yeah.
I think Tolkien actually thought of the Candish guys as being in carts instead of chariots, more like Assyrians.
Okay. But the box of models that you've got, those are Mongolian, right?
Yep.
Mongols.
Here's the.
So the question I've got:
where's the Fire Forged logo on these things?
Yeah.
Somewhere it's on there.
Yeah. Does the leader have the option to have a hunting eagle on his arm?
There's really no special characters with Can. There's just a king and there's a captain, and that's about it. And here's your basic horsey sprues, right there.
Yeah.
Kind of the usual type thing. Um, that's kind of one of the reasons you don't see too many people playing Candlestick, because they don't have the named heroes, all the fancy schmancy stuff. They're much more. They've got guys on foot. There's the guys on horseback, and then there's
Yeah.
guys in chariots, and that's about very, very much more plain. Now, GW, literally all they have is just this. There's this guy on foot, there's this guy on a horse, and this guy in a chariot. They've done nothing with them. We think that, as they keep coming out with these supplements, they'll probably do something via the Forge World route, because they'll probably just do a couple of special characters, maybe some kind of special unit.
Yeah.
But of course, we all know how expensive Forge World is.
Yeah, stupid expensive.
Because they've introduced new Easterlings here we go. So they introduced these guys. This is what made me think War in the North was coming out, because they did these black dragon cultists here. They're acolytes, sorry. And I knew there was something. Now they've just shown pictures of new, black dragon infantry miniatures. And we're pretty sure that maybe when the War in the North book actually comes out, then they'll have the black dragon cavalry. For me, I've just been taking the plastic sets and converting those, because, that was a heck of a lot cheaper.
Right.
Actually, could have used, I think they're Byzantines, but they had Byzantine cataphracts. That the same thing with Fireforge, because they have all of those historical miniatures. Here we go. We did. So this is Prince Imrahil from Dol Amroth. Now, let me see if I've got the original. I don't know if I can find the original metal one somewhere, but this is basically a Knights Templar. I obviously put a different body on him, gave him some Forge Roll bits, and then did all of the green stuff around that. Here's that same exact horse again, except I added some Tomb King's bits to it, and an Army of the Dead, and a cape, and now he's very different. And somewhere around here, I've got Boromir. Let me see if I can find him here somewhere. No, he's just too difficult to reach. Nope, he's in a box, actually. But I did Boromir with the white banner. Knights Templar, just put a different body on him and sculpted a different head, gave him a banner, and now he's Boromir. Now, here's the old one. So this thing is solid metal, and he's obviously not so convenient for actually playing in a game. So I needed something there that was going to be just a little bit more playable than that. And then when it comes to the Army of the Dead, instead of paying even more, you think these metal guys are expensive. Just one of those Army of the Dead horses is something like $30 or $35.
Oof.
And they are even worse to put together than the Candish guys are. So that's why I just made my own.
Yeah. Bunkhouse says, Forge World, yuck. I only ever bought a few kits from them, and every time there was way too much work to do on them. Way overpriced for what you get.
Well, let's see. Oh, these guys are Forge World right here, but now someone gave me these as a Christmas present or a birthday present or whatever. So yeah, there was no way I was going to be buying these Huskarls here when I could just have the 3D printed one. So here is again, a same thing. He's very much meant to be a Dunlending Huskarl. That's one of the legendary legions. So yeah, these are Forge World miniatures, but you never know when those air bubbles are going to be in there. There's just there's a lot of different things that can go wrong with Forge World stuff. Yeah. I've had to mess around that stuff way too many times over the years.
And Tiger Shadow says, wow, referring to your miniatures, I would suspect. Because, that's the first time I saw you do your work when Matt brought you on to the War Room. I was... to say the term flabbergasted came to mind was beyond the actual definition. I was whatever is beyond flabbergasted, that's what I was.
Was that when I was painting the pirates?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So, anywho, well, we're coming up on an hour 40. We've had anywhere between 7 to 10 folks watching all night. I appreciate that, guys. I always appreciate the time and that you spend with me. It is greatly appreciated. Be on the lookout for another video Friday morning, not Friday morning U.S. Central Time. Don't know what's going to be yet. It may be, I don't know. It'll be something. Who knows? We'll see. But I hope y'all enjoyed this evening. Thanks again for being here. Keep on doing what y'all are doing out there. Having fun with your gaming, painting if you like it. We'll definitely have Mr. Wapple join us again to show off his good works. So until the next time, let's see if I can do this correctly this time. Until the next time, we will see you on the flip side.